I used to think I was born to be forgotten. Not because I was invisible. No, people noticed me. But being noticed isn't the same as being wanted. I learned that early, in the quiet moments when my father's silence was louder than any scream. He was never cruel with his hands. He didn't need to be. His words, what few he chose to say, cut deeper than fists ever could. And worse than his words was his face. A face that looked through me like I wasn't even there. I was the daughter he tolerated, not loved, not celebrated, just endured. The first time I realized I was unwanted, I was 6. I had drawn a picture of our family with crayon. Me, him, the house, a son with a smile. I showed it to him with all the hope a child can carry in her chest. He barely glanced at it. "You made me too fat," he said. That was it. He turned back to the TV. I stood there for a long time, holding that paper like it was my heart on display, slowly realizing it didn't matter to him. I didn't matter to him. From then on, I tried to become smaller, quieter. I stopped showing him things. I stopped asking questions. I stopped being visible unless absolutely necessary. But no matter how small I became, I could never shrink enough to fit into his image of a daughter worth loving. At 15, when my classmates were wearing lip gloss and giggling about crushes, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and tried to understand why I couldn't be enough. My nose was too wide, my skin too dull, my eyes too tired, my body too plain. He never said I was ugly. He didn't have to. He said other things. Like, you should wear loose clothes. Don't give people the wrong idea. Or, don't get any hopes. You're not the kind of girl men chase. Once, during dinner, he said it so casually I almost missed it. You'll never be beautiful enough to matter. He was cutting meat as he said it, not even looking at me, just slicing through flesh with a blunt knife while those words landed on the table like dead weight. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just nodded and chewed and swallowed like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just watched every dream I had about love shrivel up and die under the weight of his voice. By the time I turned 22, I had stopped expecting life to offer me anything sweet. So when my father announced, without ceremony, that I was getting married, I didn't even laugh. To who? I asked. A decent man, he said, quiet, from another town. I blinked. Why would he want to marry me? He looked at me then, not with affection, not with pride, just indifference. He needs a wife. You need a husband. It's done. I opened my mouth, closed it again. You should be grateful someone wants you, he added, like he was doing me a favor. Like this man was rescuing me from the burden of my own existence. That's how I entered marriage, not as a bride with hope, but as a burden passed off. The wedding was rushed. There were no invitations, no flowers, just a borrowed dress that clung too tightly at the hips and shoes a size too small. I kept the veil down. I didn't want him, my new husband, to see me. What if he looked at me like my father did? What if he looked through me? He stood beside me, stiff and silent. He wasn't handsome, but he wasn't cruel looking either. Just unreadable. Like a man standing in a place he didn't ask to be. Like he'd stepped onto a train without knowing the destination. The vows blurred. The rings slipped on. My hands trembled so hard I thought I might faint. And when my father nodded in approval from the front row, I felt it again, that sinking sensation, like lace tightening around a coffin. That night, I sat on the edge of our new bed, my veil still on, my shoes still pinching, my heart thudding like it wanted to run. He entered the room quietly. He didn't leer, didn't lunge. He just held 2 mugs of tea. He set one beside me, sat across the room. Then, gently, he walked over and lifted the veil. I braced for the wince, the sigh, the look of regret, but it didn't come. Instead, he looked at me like he saw something. Not beauty, not ugliness, just me. Like I was familiar in a way that felt impossible. You're tired, he said. His voice was soft, almost apologetic. You don't have to talk. I nodded, too stunned to reply. I made chamomile, he added. My mother said it helps with first nights. He didn't touch me, didn't expect anything. He just sipped his tea, quiet and patient. After a long moment, I whispered, "Why did you agree to this?" He looked at me for a while before answering, "Because your father said you needed someone who wouldn't leave." He said it like a promise. The days after weren't magical. There was no sudden fall into romance, but there was peace. He cooked in the mornings, asked if I liked eggs soft or hard, noticed when I drew and said, "Your lines are steady. You must see things clearly." He listened, really listened, and I didn't know what to do with that, because I was used to earning every crumb of attention, used to performing, shrinking, apologizing for my presence. But with him, I didn't have to be anything but present. He never once called me beautiful, but he said other things. "You're steady. You look like someone who remembers birthdays. You don't talk much, but you notice everything." And somehow, those words did what makeup and mirrors never could. They made me feel seen. Weeks passed, then months. We walked together in the fields behind our house, where wildflowers grew without permission, and the sky stretched like a secret over our heads. One golden evening, he reached for my hand. He did it slowly, like a question. I let him take it. "You don't flinch anymore," he said. "Because you don't hurt me," I replied. He stopped walking, turned to face me. "I don't think you know what you look like when you're not waiting to be broken." And just like that, I cried. Not from sadness, from release, from the weight of years lifting, one gentle word at a time. Then came the gathering, a community event, music, food, chatter, and whispers. Women in tight dresses with sharp eyes and sharper tongues. "He married down," one said. "She must have trapped him," another sneered. I heard them. I always heard them. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. He stood, right in the center of the crowd, voice calm, eyes unwavering. "She's more beautiful inside than any of you could ever hope to be," he said. "And you missed it. You all missed it." The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable, honest. He walked over, took my hand, and didn't let go. That night, on our porch, under a quiet moon, I leaned into him. He brushed a strand of hair from my face and whispered, "You don't have to believe them, but believe me." And for the first time in my life, I did. Now, a year later, I no longer hide behind veils. I no longer apologize for my reflection. I no longer measure my worth in mirrors or in the silence of a father who never saw me. Because someone did. Because someone still does. And slowly, gently, I started to see her too. The girl who was steady, who remembered birthdays, who saw the world in layers. The girl who deserved soft tea and softer words. The girl who, against all odds, found love, not because she changed, but because she stopped hiding. If you're hearing this, and you've ever felt too plain, too quiet, too broken to be chosen, let me be the proof that you are not too much or too little. You are not invisible. You are not unlovable. You are waiting for someone who will rewrite the story you've been forced to believe. Let them. Let love rewrite you. We live in a world obsessed with appearances, where beauty is filtered, bodies are edited, and smiles are measured by symmetry instead of sincerity, where people are judged by the size of their waist, the shade of their skin, the smoothness of their face, and not by the kindness in their eyes, the depth of their soul, or the quiet strength they carry through life. But let me remind you of something simple and sacred. You don't need to be beautiful to deserve love. You just need to be real. Love shouldn't ask you to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. It shouldn't come with conditions like, "I'll love you if you lose weight," or "I'll stay if you change." True love sees the scars, the extra pounds, the wrinkles, the stretch marks, and loves you not despite them, but with them. Because real love doesn't want perfection. It wants connection. It doesn't care if you're tall or short, if you're curvy or thin, if your skin has acne or your teeth aren't perfectly straight. Love sees beyond what the mirror shows. We've been taught to chase a version of ourselves that doesn't even exist, to diet away our sadness, to smile through insecurity, to wear clothes that hurt just so we can look like we belong. But what if I told you that you already belong, exactly as you are? There's someone out there who will fall in love with your laugh. Not because it's dainty or quiet, but because it's loud and full and makes people turn around and smile. Someone who will hold your hand in public without ever flinching. Not because you fit into a social standard, but because you fit into their heart. We've all been made to feel too much or not enough at some point. Too fat, too plain, too loud, too quiet, not pretty enough, not cool enough, not good enough. But let me tell you a secret. The people who truly love you never saw a number on a scale. They saw your light. They saw how you take care of others before yourself. How you cry at movies and smile at strangers. How you remember the little things others forget. How your heart holds so much more than your reflection ever could. And maybe the world doesn't celebrate you the way it should. Maybe the compliments don't come often. Maybe no one ever told you this. But hear me now, please. You are worthy. You are wanted. You are enough. Right now. Not 10 pounds from now. Not after the next haircut or makeover. Now. So love others the way you want to be loved. Not for what they look like, but for who they are. Love the girl with acne and messy hair. Love the man with a crooked smile and a broken past. Love the mother who feels invisible. Love the boy who walks differently. Love the soul behind the eyes, even if the world calls them weird, ugly, or different. Because love doesn't need perfection. It needs presence. And if we all choose to love better, to love harder, to love deeper, we might just heal something that's been broken for too long. We might make this world softer, kinder, more human. So if this message touched your heart in any way, if you believe that love should never come with conditions, I invite you to join our community, a place where stories are told to remind you of your worth, where you're seen, where you're valued. Subscribe to this channel. Follow us for more emotional stories that speak to the heart. And share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. Because maybe, just maybe, this small act of love could change a life. And that life might be yours.